Good evening, dear listener. Settle into your cozy nook, let the world's clamor fade, and imagine a gentle fog curling through the streets of 19th century London. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and damp cobblestones, and the distant clop of horse hooves lulls you into a quiet rhythm. You're here to drift through a story, one that unfolds like a soft whisper, guiding you into the past with ease. Picture the moon, pale and low, casting silver light on gaslit lanes. This is where our tale begins. In a world both familiar and strange, where women's minds were mysteries to be solved, or silenced. Let's wander together, you and I, into the shadows of history, where the word hysteria first takes shape. You step onto a bustling street in London, 1840s, where petticoats rustle and top hats bob above the crowd. The air is thick with the scent of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor's cart, and your boots tap softly on the uneven stones. Women move carefully here, their corsets tight, their smiles measured. Society watches them, you see, with a keen and unforgiving eye. A woman who laughs too loudly or weeps too freely risks whispers, not of concern, but of judgment. You pause by a tea room. Its windows fogged with steam, and overhear two matrons clucking about a young lady, prone to fits. Fits of what, you wonder? Emotion? Defiance? The word hysteria floats past, vague but heavy, like a storm cloud on the horizon. In this era, medicine is a man's domain, and you can almost smell the sharp tang of carbolic acid wafting from a nearby surgeon's practice. Doctors, with their starched collars and stern brows, are beginning to label women's distress as something more than mere temperament. You linger outside a lecture hall, where a physician's voice booms through the oak doors, declaring hysteria, disease of the female constitution. It's a term rooted in ancient Greece tied to the womb, hystera. They called it, but here, in the 19th century, it's gaining new life. You can't help but smirk at the thought, a womb causing chaos, like a mischievous cat knocking over vases in the mind. Yet this idea, absurd as it seems now, holds sway over countless lives. You drift toward a quieter street, where a young woman, perhaps 20, sits on a park bench. Her name is Emily, though you'll never know it. Her hands twist in her lap, her eyes darting as if chasing thoughts she can't quite catch. She's been told she's nervous, unstable, perhaps even hysterical. You notice the faint tremble in her fingers, the way her breath catches when a passerby stares too long. Is she ill, you wonder, or simply trapped in a world that demands she be silent, serene, angelic? The doctors would say she's a case study, her emotions a puzzle to be solved with science, or something close to it. You want to whisper to her, "Your heart's just fine." But the wind carries your words away. Let's pause for a moment, you and I, under the glow of a gas lamp. The flicker of its flame feels like a heartbeat, steady and slow. Hysteria, as a diagnosis, is taking root in this era, and it's no small thing. In 1859, a French physician named Pierre Briquet will publish a treatise, cataloging hundreds of cases of hysteria, claiming it's a disorder of women's nerves, triggered by their delicate nature. You can almost hear the scratch of his quill, the certainty in his words. But there's a quirk in this story. Something delightfully odd. Briquet believes strong smells, like burnt feathers or ammonia, could snap a woman out of a hysterical fit. Imagine a doctor waving a singed feather under poor Emily's nose, expecting miracles. You stifle a chuckle, surely modern aromatherapy had humbler beginnings. Yet not all is so light-hearted. You glance back at Emily, her silhouette fading into the fog. Her distress is real, her pain no less valid for being misunderstood. The medical world, so proud of its progress, often overlooks her humanity. Scholars today still debate whether hysteria was a genuine neurological condition or a catch-all for society's discomfort with women's emotions. You ponder this as the night deepens, the air growing cooler against your skin. Was it science, or was it control? The question lingers, unanswered, like the scent of rain before a storm. You walk on, passing a chemist's shop, its windows aglow with bottles of laudanum and tonics promising calm. These are the tools of the trade, you realize, meant to soothe or subdue. But there's irony here, isn't there? The same society that demands women be docile offers them opium to ensure it. You shake your head, thinking of the energy drinks and mindfulness apps of your own time. Different bottles, same promises. The street grows quieter now, the crowds thinning as midnight nears. You feel the weight of Emily's world, its rules and its remedies, pressing gently on your shoulders. Before we part for now, let's rest on a stone bench by the Thames. The river murmurs, its surface catching slivers of moonlight. You think of Emily, of the countless women like her, navigating a world that sees their hearts as fragile glass. This story, our story, is just beginning. There's more to uncover, strange cures, silent rebellions, and the slow dawn of understanding. For now, let the river's song carry you toward sleep. History, like this water, flows on. And we'll follow it soon enough. Part 2. You linger by the Thames, its gentle ripples catching the moonlight, and the cool night air brushes your cheeks like a whispered secret. The fog from London's streets clings to your coat, carrying the faint scent of coal and wet earth. You're still in the 1840s, where the word, hysteria, hums in the air. A label for women who dare to feel too much. But now you turn away from the river, your boots clicking on cobblestones, and step deeper into the heart of Victorian society. This is a world of starched collars and stifled dreams, where women's lives are bound by invisible threads. You're here to see how these threads tighten, how they shape the very idea of madness. The street opens into a grand square, where gas lamps cast a golden glow over ladies in wide skirts and gentlemen with waxed mustaches. You pause near a marble fountain, its water tinkling like soft laughter, and watch the crowd. Women move with practiced grace, their eyes lowered, their voices soft. You can almost feel the weight of their corsets, not just on their bodies but on their spirits. Society demands they be angels, pure, obedient, serene. A woman who speaks too boldly or weeps too openly risks being called unhinged. You smirk at the thought. Imagine being labeled hysterical for wanting a second slice of cake today. Yet here, such small rebellions could spark whispers of illness. You slip into a drawing room, its air thick with the scent of lavender and polished wood. A group of women sit in a circle, their needlework forgotten as they murmur about a neighbor, Clara, who fainted at the opera. Clara, they say, is delicate, her nerves too frail for the world. You lean closer, catching the mix of pity and scorn in their voices. Fainting, you learn, is no mere swoon, it's a symptom. A sign of hysteria creeping in. The room feels smaller now, the walls pressing in like society's expectations. You wonder if Clara fainted from heat, heartbreak, or simply the exhaustion of being watched. The answer, you suspect, matters less than the label. This is the era's great paradox, and you feel it as you step back into the night. Victorian England worships progress, steam engines, telegraphs, empire, yet clings to rigid rules for half its people. You pass a bookseller's stall, its shelves heavy with manuals on female deportment. These books, you realize, are as much a cage as any asylum. They teach women to suppress their anger, their sadness, their spark. You think of your own time, of social media filters and perfect lives curated online. Different rules, same game. The thought makes you chuckle softly. History loves its mirrors, doesn't it? Let's pause at a street corner, where a flower girl offers you a wilted violet. Her hands are rough, her smile weary, but her eyes hold a quiet strength. She's no lady, not by society's standards. Yet she too faces judgment. Working-class women, you learn, are rarely called hysterical. Hysteria is a luxury for the middle and upper classes. Instead, their struggles are dismissed as laziness or vice. You slip a coin into her palm, feeling the weight of her world. In 1851, the British census will note thousands of women working as seamstresses, governesses, or maids, their mental health ignored unless it disrupts their labor. This is the event that anchors our story now, a society counting its people but blind to their inner lives. There's a peculiar detail here, one that makes you tilt your head. Some doctors believe a woman's diet can trigger hysteria: too much tea, too little meat, or, heaven forbid, an excess of pickles. You imagine a physician scolding Clara for sneaking a gherkin, his face grave as if she'd committed treason. The absurdity tickles you, but it's a fleeting laugh. These theories, however odd, shape lives. They justify scrutiny, control, confinement. You glance back at the flower girl, wondering what she'd make of such nonsense. Her life, you suspect, leaves little room for fainting spells or pickled perils. The night grows colder, and you pull your coat tighter. The square is quieter now, the crowd thinning as lamps flicker low. You think of Clara, of the flower girl, of countless women navigating this world's expectations. Historians still debate whether Victorian society's obsession with female fragility was a deliberate power play or a blind spot born of ignorance. You let the question simmer unanswered. As you walk on, the air smells of rain, and the distant chime of a church bell feels like a heartbeat, slow and steady. You pass a grand house, its windows glowing with candlelight. Inside, a young woman, perhaps another Clara, sits at a pianoforte, her fingers hesitant on the keys. Her mother hovers nearby, urging her to play softly, to avoid overexcitement. You pause, listening to the halting melody, and feel a pang of recognition. This is hysteria's birthplace, not in the body, but in a world that fears women's strength. You want to knock on the door, to tell her to play louder, but the moment passes. The music stops, and the curtains draw closed. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench beneath an oak tree, its branches swaying in the breeze. The leaves rustle, a soothing whisper that blends with the city's hum. You think of the women we've met, their lives shaped by rules they didn't write. This story, our story, flows like the Thames we left behind, steady, deep, unbroken. There's more to see: doctors' offices, strange machines, voices fighting to be heard. For now, let the night cradle you. History waits, patient and vast, and we'll step into it again soon. Part 3. The oak tree's whispers fade as you rise, the night air cool against your skin, carrying the faint scent of damp leaves and distant chimney smoke. You're still in Victorian London, 1840s, where the word hysteria lingers like fog, settling over women's lives. Your boots echo softly on the cobblestones as you leave the grand square behind, drawn toward a narrower street where gas lamps flicker weakly. The city feels quieter now, almost holding its breath. And you sense a shift. You're heading toward a place where hysteria transforms from gossip to gospel, a doctor's office, where men in white coats wield pens like scepters, naming women's pain with clinical certainty. You pause outside a Georgian building, its brass plaque gleaming, Dr. Thomas Harrow, physician. The air smells of antiseptic and wax polish, sharp and sterile. You slip through the heavy door, your footsteps muffled on a threadbare rug, and find yourself in a waiting room. The walls are lined with mahogany, the air heavy with the ticking of a grandfather clock. A young woman sits in a stiff chair, her gloved hands folded tightly, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her name might be Sarah or Jane, but her story feels familiar. Another Emily, another Clara, caught in the web of scrutiny. You wonder what brought her here: a sleepless night, a burst of tears, a moment of defiance? Whatever it was, it's enough to land her in this chair, under the doctor's gaze. You're ushered into the office, where Dr. Harrow sits behind a desk cluttered with inkwells and leather-bound books. His spectacles glint in the candlelight, and his voice is low, measured, like a priest delivering a sermon. He's writing in a ledger, noting Sarah's symptoms: irritability, faintness, a tendency to overthink. You lean closer, catching the scratch of his quill, and see the word hysteria scrawled in precise cursive. This is the moment, you realize, where the diagnosis takes root. In the 1840s and 1850s, physicians like Harrow are formalizing hysteria as a medical condition, distinct from madness but dangerous in its own vague way. You can't help but smirk. Imagine a doctor today diagnosing overthinking with such gravity. Yet here, it's a verdict that shapes lives. The room feels smaller now. The air thick with the scent of old books and faint carbolic acid. Dr. Harrow leans back, stroking his beard, and explains to Sarah's mother, who hovers anxiously, that her daughter's nerves are overwrought. He prescribes rest, a tonic, perhaps a whiff of ammonia to steady her. You notice Sarah's hands tremble. Not from illness but from the weight of being seen as broken. You want to whisper to her, "You're not a puzzle to be solved." But the words dissolve in the stuffy air. Instead, you watch as she nods, her face pale, and follows her mother out. The door clicks shut, and you're left with the ticking clock, its rhythm slow and relentless. Let's step outside for a moment, you and I. Into the cool night. The street is quiet, save for the distant clatter of a carriage. You think of Sarah, of the ledger's damning ink. This is no small thing. The formalization of hysteria as a diagnosis, cemented by men like Harrow, will dominate medical thought for decades. In 1853, a British physician, Robert Brudenell Carter, will publish a key work on the pathology and treatment of hysteria, arguing that emotional excess in women stems from their biology. You can almost hear his lectures, delivered with the confidence of a man who's never questioned his own lens. But there's a quirky detail here, one that makes you tilt your head. Carter believed tight corsets could worsen hysteria by restricting breath. Picture a doctor loosening Sarah's laces, muttering about circulation, as if freedom could be so simple. You chuckle softly. Modern yoga classes owe him a nod, don't they? Yet the humor fades as you walk on, passing a chemist's shop with bottles of laudanum glowing in the window. These are the tools of Harrow's trade, meant to calm or control. You think of the flower girl from the square, her rough hands and steady gaze. She'd never sit in Harrow's office. Her struggles don't count as delicate. The diagnosis of hysteria, you realize, is a privilege of class, reserved for women who can afford to be fragile. Scholars still debate whether this medical trend was a genuine attempt to understand mental health or a tool to enforce social order. You let the question hang unanswered. As the fog thickens around you, you pass a church, its spire piercing the mist, and hear the faint strains of a hymn. The melody is soothing, like a lullaby, and you pause to listen. The music reminds you of the pianoforte from the grand house, its notes stifled by caution. This world, you see, fears women's voices, literal and otherwise. You think of your own time, of therapy apps and self-care blogs, and smile wryly. Different tools, same quest for calm. The hymn fades and you walk on, the cobblestones slick underfoot. The night feels heavier now, as if carrying Sarah's unspoken thoughts. Before we rest, let's sit on a low wall by a garden gate, where ivy spills over the stones. The air smells of wet moss and faint roses. A quiet contrast to the doctor's sterile office. You think of Sarah, of the ledger's ink drying, of the countless women whose stories are reduced to a single word. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we left behind. There's more to see, strange machines, cold asylums, flickers of rebellion. For now, let the garden's hush cradle you. History's whispers are patient, and we'll hear them again soon. Part 4. The garden gate creaks softly as you rise, the scent of roses and moss lingering in the cool night air. You're still in Victorian London, 1840s, where the fog curls like a cat around the gas lamps, and the word, hysteria, hangs heavy, no longer just a whisper but a verdict. Your boots tap on the slick cobblestones as you move away from the doctor's stern office, drawn toward a place where medicine's grip tightens. The street narrows, the air sharp with the tang of metal and ozone, and you find yourself outside a peculiar building, a clinic, its windows glowing faintly with candlelight. You're here to see the cures. The strange and earnest attempts to fix women labeled hysterical. The night is quiet, save for the distant hum of a machine, and you feel a shiver, not from cold but from curiosity. You step inside, the door groaning on its hinges, and the air shifts, warmer, tinged with the scent of oil and polished wood. The room is small, cluttered with odd contraptions, a chair with straps, a box humming with electricity, a glass bottle filled with a murky liquid. A nurse, her apron starched to perfection, glances at you but says nothing. In the center sits a woman, perhaps 30. Her eyes wide as a doctor adjusts a device strapped to her arm. Her name might be Margaret, but you'll never know. She's here for treatment. Her diagnosis of hysteria etched in the doctor's ledger. You can almost hear the scratch of that quill, the same one that doomed Sarah in the office we left behind. You want to ask Margaret if she feels ill or simply human. But the hum of the machine drowns your thoughts. This is the era of invention, you see, and medicine is no exception. You lean closer, noticing the doctor's pride as he explains the device. A vibratory apparatus, meant to soothe overactive nerves. The chair vibrates gently, its rhythm oddly hypnotic, like a lullaby made of gears. You stifle a smirk. Imagine pitching this to a modern wellness guru as therapeutic shaking. But this is no joke to Margaret, whose hands grip the armrests, her face a mask of resignation. In the 1850s, such treatments are gaining traction, spurred by men like George Taylor, an American physician who later patented a steam-powered vibrating table. You can almost see him tinkering in his workshop, convinced he's saving women from themselves. This is the event that anchors our story now, the rise of mechanical cures for a condition no one fully understands. The room feels smaller, the air buzzing with static. You glance at another device, a box with wires that delivers mild electric shocks to stimulate the nerves. The doctor claims it's science. But you catch a whiff of showmanship, like a magician dazzling a crowd. There's a quirky detail here, one that makes you tilt your head, some doctors swear by. Aromatic inhalations, like chlorine gas or burnt feathers, to jolt women out of hysterical fits. Picture Margaret inhaling a puff of singed plumage, her eyes watering as the doctor nods sagely. You chuckle softly. Modern spa days with eucalyptus steam feel like distant cousins, don't they? Yet the humor fades as you watch Margaret's shoulders slump, her spirit dimmed by the weight of being cured. You step back, the floor creaking underfoot, and think of the women we've met: Emily by the Thames, Clara fainting at the opera, Sarah in the doctor's office. Their pain is real, but these cures feel like theater, a performance of control. You wonder if Margaret's trembling is from nerves or the indignity of it all. Historians still debate whether these treatments were born of genuine medical curiosity or a need to tame women's emotions. You let the question linger unanswered. As the machine's hum fills the silence, the nurse adjusts a dial, and the vibration slows, leaving the room eerily quiet. You slip outside, the night air relief after the clinic's stuffy warmth. The fog is thicker now, swallowing the street in soft gray. You pass a chemist's shop, its window aglow with bottles of tonics, laudanum, valerian, promises of calm. These are the softer tools of the trade, you realize, but no less controlling. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady gaze untouched by such clinics. Her struggles don't warrant vibrating chairs or electric shocks, they're simply ignored. The thought makes you pause, your breath visible in the chilly air. Different worlds, same silence. The street leads you to a small park, where a willow tree sways gently, its branches brushing the ground. The scent of wet grass mixes with the faint smoke of distant chimneys, grounding you. You think of your own time, of massage chairs and aromatherapy diffusers, and smile wryly. History loves its echoes, doesn't it? The willow's leaves rustle, a soothing whisper. And you feel the weight of Margaret's world, its machines and its judgments, pressing lightly on your chest. The night is deep now, the city asleep. And you sense the stories shifting, darker places await, but not yet. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench beneath the willow, its branches a soft curtain around you. The air is cool, the silence broken only by the tree's gentle sway. You think of Margaret, of the humming chair, of the countless women strapped to machines or bottles or words. This tale, our tale, flows on. Unbroken, like the river we left long ago. There's more to see, myths older than these machines, walls colder than this night. For now, let the willows whisper cradle you. History's truths are patient, and we'll uncover them soon. Part 5. The willow's branches sway gently as you stand, their soft rustle blending with the distant hum of London's night. The fog clings to your coat, carrying the earthy scent of damp grass and faint coal smoke. You're still in the 1840s, where hysteria is no longer just a word but a chain, binding women to cures and judgments. Your boots sink slightly into the park's soft ground as you leave the bench behind, drawn toward a quieter street where gas lamps cast long, wavering shadows. The air feels heavier now, as if carrying the weight of old ideas, and you sense a shift. You're stepping backward in time, not in years but in thought, to uncover the roots of this diagnosis. A myth as old as medicine itself, one that still shapes the clinics we've seen. You find yourself outside a library, its stone facade looming in the mist. The air smells of old paper and wax, and you slip through the heavy doors, your footsteps echoing on polished marble. Inside, the shelves tower like sentinels, filled with leather-bound volumes on medicine, philosophy, and lore. You pause by a table where a single book lies open, its pages yellowed, its text dense with Greek and Latin. This is where the story of hysteria begins, you realize, not in Victorian clinics but in ancient texts. You run your finger along a line, feeling the faint texture of ink, and read of the wandering womb, a belief that a woman's uterus, restless and untamed, roams her body, causing chaos in her mind. You smirk at the thought, a womb with a mind of its own, like a cat prowling the alleys of London. This idea, born in ancient Greece with physicians like Hippocrates, is no mere curiosity. You lean closer, the candlelight flickering on the page, and see how it lingered through centuries, shaping the doctors we've met, Harrow with his ledger, the clinic's buzzing machines. In the 19th century, this myth is fading but not gone. A ghost haunting medical thought. You imagine Margaret from the vibrating chair, her distress blamed on an organ rather than her world's constraints. The library feels vast yet stifling, its silence thick with the weight of old certainties. You want to whisper to the pages, "You got it wrong," but the dust swallows your words. Let's step into a side room, you and I, where a lecturer's voice drifts through a cracked door. The air smells of chalk and stale coffee, and you peek inside to see a physician addressing a small crowd of students. He's explaining hysteria's causes, gesturing to a diagram of a woman's body, the womb circled in red. This is the moment that anchors our story. In 1847, a British medical journal, The Lancet, publishes articles reinforcing the link between women's reproductive organs and their mental health. You can almost hear the rustle of newsprint, the confidence in the lecturer's voice. But there's a quirky detail here, one that makes you tilt your head. Some doctors believe strong perfumes, like musk or lavender, can lure the womb back to its proper place. Picture a physician waving a vial of scent under a patient's nose, as if her body were a lost puppy. You chuckle softly. Modern aromatherapy might owe these men a thank you note. The humor fades as you leave the lecture room, the air cooler in the library's main hall. You think of the women we've met, Emily twisting her hands, Clara fainting, Sarah trembling under Harrow's gaze. Their pain is real, but this myth of the wandering womb turns it into something alien, unnatural. You pass a window, its glass fogged with condensation, and catch your reflection. You think of your own time, of wellness trends blaming hormones for every mood swing. Different myths, same echoes. The thought makes you pause, your breath clouding the glass. History loves its patterns, doesn't it? You step outside, the night air sharp and clean after the library's musty warmth. The street is quiet, save for the distant clop of hooves. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady hands untouched by these theories. Her struggles don't fit the neat boxes of medical texts, she's too busy surviving. Scholars still debate whether the wandering womb theory was a sincere belief or a convenient excuse to control women's bodies. You let the question hang, unanswered, as the fog swirls around you. The stars are hidden tonight, but you feel their presence, distant and patient. You walk on, passing a small apothecary, its window glowing with bottles of tonics and oils. These are the softer airs of the wandering womb, you realize, remedies to balance women's nature. You think of the burnt feathers and ammonia from earlier cures, and a wry smile tugs at your lips. The apothecary's sign creaks in the breeze, its sound a gentle lullaby. The night feels deeper now, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning toward darker places, where walls are thicker than library shelves. Before we rest, let's sit on a low stone wall by a churchyard, where ivy clings to the iron gate. The air smells of wet stone and faint lavender, a nod to the perfumes of old. You think of the open book, its inked words binding women to a myth. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we left long ago. There's more to see. Cold corridors, quiet rebellions, truths buried in dust. For now, let the churchyard's hush cradle you. History's secrets are patient, and we'll uncover them soon. Part 6. The churchyard gate creaks as you stand, the scent of lavender and wet stone fading into the night's cool embrace. The fog swirls thicker now, wrapping Victorian London in a grey veil, and the distant toll of a bell echoes like a heartbeat. You're still in the 1840s, where hysteria binds women to myths and machines, but the air feels heavier, the shadows deeper. Your boots sink into the damp earth as you leave the churchyard behind, drawn toward a place where the diagnosis grows darker. The street twists, narrowing into a lane where gas lamps flicker like dying stars, and you see it, a looming building of grey stone, its windows barred, its silence oppressive. This is the asylum, where women labeled hysterical vanish from the world. The night is still, save for the faint rattle of a locked gate, and you feel a quiet ache, as if the stones themselves hold secrets. You approach the iron gates, their cold metal biting your fingertips, and peer through the bars. The air smells of mildew and something sharper, disinfectant, perhaps, or despair. Beyond the gates, the asylum sprawls, its corridors hidden but imagined, long, echoing, lined with locked doors. You picture a woman, perhaps 30, her hair loose, her eyes wide with fear or defiance. Her name might be Eliza, but she's another shadow, like Emily or Margaret before her. She's here because she screamed too loudly, wept too long, or dared to question her place. You want to call out to her, to say her heart is no illness, but the gates stand firm, and your voice is lost in the fog. Inside, you slip past the gates, not through force but through the story's gentle pull. The corridor is cold, the air heavy with the scent of lye and old straw. You hear a distant sob, muffled by thick walls, and your footsteps echo on the stone floor. The asylum is a world apart, you realize, where hysteria becomes a sentence, not a diagnosis. In the 1840s, institutions like Bethlem or Hanwell Asylum in London are swelling with women, some truly ill, others simply inconvenient. You pause by a door, its small window revealing a glimpse of a woman pacing, her hands twisting like Emily's by the Thames. The doctors call her hysterical, but you wonder if she's just angry, or heartbroken, or alive in a world that prefers her silent. This is the era's grim truth, and you feel it as you move deeper into the corridor. Asylums are not just hospitals but warehouses for those who defy the script of Victorian womanhood. In 1845, the Lunacy Act in England formalizes the process, making it easier to commit women to asylums with a doctor's signature and a family's consent. You can almost see the ink drying on the paperwork. The swiftness of it all. But there's a peculiar detail here, one that makes you tilt your head. Some asylums use hydrotherapy, dousing women in cold water to shock their nerves into calm. Picture Eliza, shivering under a torrent, her defiance doused but not drowned. You chuckle softly. Modern ice baths for wellness feel like distant cousins, don't they? Yet the humor fades as you hear another sob, closer now, and see the bars on every window. The corridor turns, and you pass a nurse, her face stern, her keys jangling like a warning. She doesn't see you, but her presence feels like a weight. You think of the women we've met, Clara fainting, Sarah trembling, Margaret strapped to a chair. The asylum is their shadow. The threat that looms if they stray too far. You wonder what separates Eliza from them, chance, wealth, or simply timing. Historians still debate whether asylums were meant to heal or control, whether they sheltered the sick or silenced the rebellious. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the air grows colder, the walls closer. You step into a small courtyard, the fog thinner here, revealing a patch of starry sky. The air smells of wet earth and faint lye, and you breathe deeply, grateful for the open space. You think of the flower girl from the square, her rough hands free of these walls. Her struggles don't land her here. Poverty demands she work, not weep. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the courtyard's stone wall. You think of your own time, of mental health hotlines and stigma still clinging like fog. Different cages, same echoes. The stars twinkle, and you smile wryly. History loves its patterns, doesn't it? The courtyard leads back to the street, and you slip through the gates, the asylum's shadow fading but not gone. The lane is quiet, save for the distant clop of hooves, and you walk on. The fog curling around you like a shawl. The night feels deeper now, the city asleep, and you sense the stories shifting, toward voices that refuse to be locked away. You pass a small chapel, its stained glass glowing faintly, and hear the faint hum of a hymn, soothing as a lullaby. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the chapel, its stone warmed by the day's last heat. The air smells of wax and faint incense, a quiet contrast to the asylum's sterile chill. You think of Eliza, of the locked doors, of the countless women whose stories are buried in stone. This tale, our tale, flows on unbroken, like the Thames we left long ago. There's more to see, whispers of defiance, sparks of change. For now, let the chapel's glow cradle you. History's heartbeats are patient, and we'll hear them soon. Part 7. The chapel's faint glow lingers as you rise, the scent of wax and incense fading into the cool night air. The fog swirls gently, wrapping Victorian London in a soft haze, and the distant clatter of a carriage wheels you back to the 1840s. Hysteria is a heavy word now, chaining women to asylums, machines, and myths. But you sense a shift, a quiet spark. Your boots tap softly on the cobblestones as you leave the chapel behind, drawn toward a bustling square where gas lamps flicker like fireflies. The air smells of roasted chestnuts and damp wool, and you hear voices, not the stern tones of doctors, but something softer, bolder. You're here to find the women who push back, who question the labels pressed upon them. The night hums with possibility, and you feel a gentle thrill, as if the fog itself carries their whispers. You slip into a modest drawing room. Its air warm with the scent of tea and fresh ink. A group of women sits around a table, their faces lit by candlelight, their voices low but firm. One, perhaps 40, with sharp eyes and a pen in hand, is reading aloud from a letter she's drafting. Her name might be Anne, but she feels like a beacon. She's challenging her sister's diagnosis of hysteria, questioning why a doctor deemed her unstable for refusing a marriage. You lean closer, catching the scratch of her pen, the defiance in her words. These women are not loud rebels. They can't afford to be, but their quiet resistance is a revolution. You want to cheer for Anne, to tell her she's rewriting history. But the candle's flicker holds you silent. This is a turning point, you see, small but vital. In the 1840s, women like Anne are beginning to speak, not in public squares but in parlors, letters, and diaries. They question the doctor's authority, the asylum's walls, the very idea that their emotions are illness. You feel the weight of their courage, fragile as the teacup in Anne's hand. In 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention in America, though far from London, will mark a formal step for women's rights, with voices like Elizabeth Cady Stanton demanding equality. Its ripples reach here. You realize, fueling whispers like ants. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Some women, denied medical voice, turn to spiritualism, holding seances to commune with their own minds. Picture Anne at a seance, half smiling as the table wobbles, seeking answers doctors won't give. You chuckle softly. Modern therapy apps feel like their high-tech cousins, don't they? The room feels warmer now, the air thick with shared secrets. You glance at the other women, a young governess, her hands calloused, a widow, her eyes weary but bright. They're not all hysterical, by label, but they know the threat, the shadow of Eliza's asylum or Margaret's vibrating chair. You think of Clara fainting, Sarah trembling, and feel a thread connecting them all. Their resistance is not in marches but in moments, refusing a tonic, hiding a diary, whispering doubts. You want to sit among them, to listen longer, but the story pulls you onward, the candlelight fading as you step back into the night. The square is quieter now, the chestnut vendor gone. The air cooler against your skin. You pause by a fountain, its water tinkling like a lullaby, and think of Anne's letter, its ink still wet. This is no small thing. These voices, though soft, are cracking the foundation of hysteria's power. Scholars still debate whether these early resistances were feminist acts or desperate survival, whether they changed medicine or merely survived it. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the fog curls around you. The stars are hidden, but you sense their light, patient and steady. You walk on, passing a bookseller's stall. Its shelves heavy with novels and pamphlets. Some, you know, are written by women under pseudonyms, their words slipping past society's rules. You think of your own time, of anonymous blogs and viral posts, and smile wryly. Different pens, same fight. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the stall's rough wood. The air smells of rain, and the distant chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning toward battles of science and superstition, where these voices will echo. You pass a small park, where a willow tree sways, its branches brushing the ground like the one we sat beneath before. The scent of wet grass mixes with faint smoke, grounding you. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady gaze untouched by parlors or seances. Her rebellion is in her survival, you realize, no less fierce than Anne's pen. The willow's leaves rustle, a soothing whisper, and you feel the weight of this world, its rules and its refusals, resting lightly on your shoulders. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the park's edge, where the fog softens the gas lamp's glow. The air smells of earth and faint chestnuts, a quiet nod to the square we left. You think of Anne, of her letter, of the countless women whose whispers are growing louder. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. There's more to see, clashes of ideas, cages of rest. Voices rising higher. For now, let the park's hush cradle you. History's sparks are patient, and we'll follow them soon. Part 8. The park's gentle hush lingers as you rise. The fog curling around you like a soft shawl, carrying the faint scent of wet grass and distant coal smoke. Victorian London, 1840s, hums quietly in the night, its gas lamps casting pools of gold on the cobblestones. The word, hysteria, weighs heavy, a label that binds women to asylums and whispered judgments, yet you feel the stir of defiance. Anne's pen. The women's voices, still echoing from the drawing room. Your boots tap softly as you leave the park behind, drawn toward a grander street where lecture halls loom, their windows glowing with the promise of knowledge. The air smells of chalk dust and old books, and you sense a clash brewing, not of swords, but of ideas. You're here to see where science and superstition collide, where hysteria's roots are questioned, or perhaps reinforced. The night is calm, but the stars, hidden by fog, seem to pulse with quiet tension. You slip into a lecture hall, its air warm and thick with the scent of polished wood and tobacco. Rows of men, physicians, students, scholars, sit attentively, their faces lit by flickering lamps. At the front, a doctor, his beard neatly trimmed, gestures to a blackboard scrawled with diagrams of nerves and organs. His voice is confident, almost theatrical, as he explains hysteria as a disorder of the female nervous system, triggered by emotional excess. You lean against a back wall, feeling the cool plaster under your fingers, and watch the audience nod, their pens scratching furiously. This is the era of progress, you realize, where science claims to banish old myths like the wandering womb. Yet you sense a shadow, superstition lingers, dressed in scientific jargon. You smirk at the thought. A myth in a lab coat is still a myth, isn't it? The doctor's lecture is part of a larger shift, and you feel its weight as you glance at the diagrams. In the 1850s, neurology is emerging, with men like Jean-Martin Charcot in France beginning to study hysteria as a neurological condition, not just a moral failing. His work, though later, casts ripples here, in London's halls, where doctors debate whether hysteria is a disease of the brain or a flaw of character. You can almost hear the rustle of their papers, the certainty in their voices. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Some physicians still prescribe magnetic therapy, using magnets to realign a woman's nerves. Picture a doctor waving a magnet over Anne's sister, as if her defiance were a misaligned compass. You chuckle softly. Modern crystal healing might owe these men a nod, don't they? The hall feels smaller now, the air heavy with the weight of half-truths. You think of the women we've met. Eliza in the asylum, Margaret in the vibrating chair, and with her defiant pen. Their pain is real, but these lectures reduce it to charts and theories, stripping away their humanity. You want to interrupt, to ask if they've ever listened to a woman's story, but the doctor drones on, unmoved. You glance at a student, his face eager, and wonder if he'll carry these ideas forward or question them. The blackboard's chalk lines blur in the lamplight, and you feel a pang. Science is a slow unlearner, isn't it? You step outside. The night air sharp and clean after the hall's stuffy warmth. The street is quiet, save for the distant clop of hooves, and you pause by a stone fountain, its water murmuring like a lullaby. This is no small thing. The tension between science and superstition is reshaping hysteria, but not always for the better. Scholars still debate whether these early neurologists advanced women's care or merely repackaged old biases in scientific terms. You let the question hang, unanswered, as the fog swirls around you. The stars remain hidden, but you sense their light, steady and distant. You walk on, passing a small bookshop, its window aglow with medical texts and novels. Some, you know, are written by women, their voices slipping through the cracks of this male-dominated world. You think of your own time, of podcasts and forums debating mental health, and smile wryly. Different stages, same questions. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the bookshop's glass. The air smells of rain, and the faint chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning toward quieter cages, where rest becomes a trap. You pass a garden, its roses drooping under the fog's weight, their scent faint but sweet. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady hands untouched by lecture halls or magnets. Her struggles don't fit these debates, she's too busy living. The roses sway, their petals falling like soft whispers, and you feel the weight of this world, its theories and its silences, resting lightly on your chest. You remember the burnt feathers from the clinic, the perfumes from the library, and smile. History loves its odd remedies, doesn't it? Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the garden's edge, where the fog softens the gas lamp's glow. The air smells of roses and faint earth, a quiet nod to the park we left. You think of the blackboard, its chalk lines mapping women's minds without their consent. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. There's more to see: beds of confinement, stories of pain, sparks of change. For now, let the garden's hush cradle you. History's truths are patient, and we'll uncover them soon. Part 9. The garden's roses sway gently as you stand, their faint sweetness mingling with the fog's damp chill. Victorian London, 1840s, wraps around you, its gas lamps glowing softly through the haze. The word, hysteria, lingers, a heavy thread stitching women to myths, machines, and now, quieter traps. Your boots tap on the cobblestones as you leave the garden behind, drawn toward a quieter street where townhouses stand tall, their windows curtained against the night. The air smells of wax and faint lavender, and you sense a shift: less clamor, more stillness. You're here to step into a room where a new cure reigns, one that sounds gentle but binds just as tightly. The rest cure. The night is calm, the fog a soft cradle, but you feel a quiet tension, as if the silence itself holds secrets. You slip into a townhouse, its door ajar, and climb a narrow staircase. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of polished wood and camphor. You enter a bedroom, its walls papered in soft florals, its bed draped in white linen. A woman, perhaps 25, lies there, her eyes half open, her hands folded over a quilt. Her name might be Charlotte, but she's another echo of Eliza, Anne, or Margaret. She's been prescribed the rest cure, a treatment gaining favor among doctors like Silas Weir Mitchell, whose methods will peak later but are already whispered here. The room feels like a cocoon, but not the kind that frees, more like one that smothers. You want to open a window, to let the fog's cool breath in, but the curtains stay drawn, the air still. This is the rest cure's essence. You see, complete immobility, isolation, and silence, meant to soothe overwrought nerves. You sit by Charlotte's bed, the chair creaking softly, and notice the untouched tray of broth on the nightstand. She's forbidden to read, write, or even sit up for weeks, her mind forced into idleness to heal her hysteria. You can almost hear the doctor's instructions, delivered with calm authority: rest, eat, obey. In 1873, Mitchell will formalize this in his book Fat and Blood, but its roots are here. In rooms like this, where women are tucked away like fragile dolls. You smirk at the thought. Imagine a modern doctor prescribing 6 weeks of Netflix binges to cure anxiety. Yet here, Charlotte's stillness is no joke, it's her sentence. The room feels smaller now, the air thick with the weight of enforced calm. You glance at Charlotte's face, her eyes flickering with thoughts she can't voice. Her fingers twitch, as if longing for a pen or a book, but the doctor's orders are clear: no stimulation, no spark. You think of Anne's defiant letter, Eliza's pacing in the asylum, and feel a pang. The rest cure is a softer cage, but a cage nonetheless. There's a quirky detail here, one that makes you tilt your head. Some doctors insist on overfeeding patients, plying them with milk and meat to strengthen their nerves. Picture Charlotte, spoon-fed custard until she chokes, her body stuffed while her mind starves. You chuckle softly. Modern juice cleanses feel like their distant kin, don't they? You rise, the floorboards sighing underfoot, and move to the window. You part the curtains just enough to see the fog outside, its gray folds softening the street below. This is no small thing. The rest cure, with its promise of healing, is spreading, shaping lives in rooms across England and beyond. Scholars still debate whether it was a misguided attempt at care or a deliberate stifling of women's agency. You let the question linger unanswered. As the fog presses against the glass, you think of the flower girl from the square, her rough hands free of these beds. Her struggles don't warrant rest cures, she's too busy surviving. You step into the hallway, the air cooler, the scent of camphor fading. The house is quiet, save for the faint tick of a clock downstairs. You pass a mirror, its surface clouded, and catch a glimpse of your reflection. You think of your own time, of mindfulness absent, digital detoxes, and smile wryly. Different cures, same quest for calm. The thought makes you pause. your fingers brushing the banister. The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning towards stories that capture this pain, voices that echo beyond these walls. You leave the house, the street silent save for the distant clop of hooves. You pass a small bookshop, its window glowing with novels, some written by women who know Charlotte's stillness too well. The air smells of rain, and the fog curls around you like a whisper. You think of the vibrating chair, the burnt feathers, the magnets, and smile. History loves its strange fixes, doesn't it? The street leads to a park, where willow's branches sway, their rustle a soothing lullaby, tying you back to the night we sat beneath one. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the park's edge, where the fog softens the gas lamp's glow. The air smells of wet earth and faint lavender, a nod to the perfumes we've met. You think of Charlotte, her still hands, the countless women tucked into beds of healing. This tale, our tale, flows on unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. There's more to see, stories in ink, men's debates, sparks of change. For now, let the park's hush cradle you. History's silences are patient, and we'll hear their echoes soon. Part 10. The park's willow sways gently as you rise, its branches whispering in the fog that cloaks Victorian London. The air carries the scent of wet earth and faint lavender, tying you to the quiet nights we've wandered. It's still the 1840s, and hysteria binds women to beds, asylums, and myths, but you feel a shift, a softer current. Your boots tap on the cobblestones as you leave the park behind, drawn toward a quieter street where bookshops glow like beacons. The air smells of old paper and ink, and you sense stories waiting, not in lecture halls or clinics, but in the pages of novels, where women's pain finds a voice. The night is calm, the fog a gentle veil, and you feel a quiet pull, as if the books themselves are calling you to listen. You slip into a bookshop, its door creaking softly, and the warmth of candlelight greets you. The air is thick with the scent of leather bindings and dust, and shelves tower around you, heavy with novels, poetry, and essays. You pause by a table, your fingers brushing a book with a worn cover, Jane Eyre by Currer Bell, published in 1847. You know Currer is Charlotte Bronte, her pseudonym a shield in a world that doubts women's pens. You open the book, its pages soft under your touch, and read of Jane's fierce spirit, her struggles against a world that seeks to cage her. You see echoes of Charlotte in the rest cure, Eliza in the asylum, and with her defiant letter. These stories, you realize, are mirrors, reflecting the pain of hysterical women. You want to whisper to the pages. You saw it all, but the candle's flicker holds you silent. This is no small thing, you see. Literature in the 1840s and beyond is capturing the weight of hysteria, not as a diagnosis but as a human struggle. You move to another shelf, finding The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, also under a pseudonym, its pages raw with a woman's fight for autonomy. In 1848, these works are stirring readers, especially women, who see their own lives in the ink. You can almost hear the rustle of pages turning, the quiet gasps of recognition. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Some critics, all men, dismiss these novels as hysterical, themselves, too emotional, too bold. Picture a reviewer tooting over Jane Eyre's passion, as if Bronte's pen were a vibrating chair gone rogue. You chuckle softly, modern book blogs arguing over, relatable, heroines feel like their kin. Don't they? The bookshop feels smaller now, the air warm with the weight of untold stories. You think of the women we've met, Margaret strapped to a machine, Sarah trembling under a doctor's gaze, Charlotte lying still in her floral room. Their pain lives in these novels, you realize, not as case studies but as lives fierce and flawed. You glance at a young woman browsing nearby, her eyes bright as she clutches a copy of Wuthering Heights. She might be another, and seeking strength in stories. You want to tell her these books are lifelines, but the story pulls you onward. The candlelight fading as you step back into the night. The street is quiet, save for the distant clop of hooves, and you pause by a gas lamp, its glow softened by the fog. This is a turning point. Literature is giving women a voice, however veiled, in a world that labels their emotions as illness. Scholars still debate whether these novels shaped medical thought or merely mirrored its flaws. Whether they empowered women or simply grieved for them. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the fog curls around you. The stars are hidden, but you sense their light, patient and steady. You walk on, passing a small cafe, its windows fogged with steam. Inside, women sit in pairs, whispering over tea, perhaps discussing the latest novel. You think of your own time. Of book clubs and online forums dissecting characters' choices, and smile wryly. Different pages, same hunger for truth. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the cafe's brick wall. The air smells of rain, and the faint chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning toward men's debates. Where these stories are judged. You pass a garden, its roses drooping under the fog's weight, their scent faint but sweet. You think of the flower girl from the square. Her steady hands untouched by novels or rest cures. Her story is unwritten, you realize, but no less real. The roses sway, their petals falling like soft whispers. And you feel the weight of this world, its ink and its silences, resting lightly on your chest. You remember the burnt feathers, the magnets, the custard trays, and smile. History loves its odd echoes. Doesn't it? Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the garden's edge, where the fog softens the gas lamp's glow. The air smells of roses and faint earth, a nod to the nights we've wandered. You think of Jane Eyre, her fierce heart, and the countless women whose stories live in ink. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we left long ago. There's more to see. Lecture halls, sparks of change, truths rising. For now, let the garden's hush cradle you. History's voices are patient, and we'll hear them soon. Part 11. The garden's roses fade into the fog as you rise, their soft scent lingering like a memory. Victorian London, 1840s, hums quietly, its gas lamps casting golden pools through the haze. The weight of hysteria presses on, a label that cages women in novels, beds, and asylums, yet you feel a shift, a return to the clamor of authority. Your boots tap on the cobblestones as you leave the bookshop's glow behind, drawn toward a grander street where lecture halls stand tall, their stone facades stern as judges. The air smells of chalk dust and pipe smoke, and you sense a gathering of power, men debating women's minds with unyielding certainty. You're here to step into their world, where medicine is a fortress, and women's voices are but echoes. The night is calm, the fog a gentle veil, but you feel a quiet tension, as if the stones themselves brace for their words. You slip into a lecture hall, its air thick with the scent of polished oak and stale coffee. Rows of men, physicians, professors, students, fill the benches, their faces lit by flickering lamps. At the front, a doctor, his spectacles glinting, speaks with measured authority, his voice rolling like a sermon. He's discussing hysteria, tracing its causes to women's fragile nerves and unstable biology. You lean against a pillar, feeling the cool stone under your fingers, and watch the audience nod, their notebooks open, their pens scratching. This is a man's domain, you realize, where women's minds are dissected without their presence. You smirk at the thought. Imagine a modern conference debating male anxiety, with no men in the room. Yet here, the absence feels normal, the debate unchallenged. This is the heart of medicine's control. And you feel its weight as you glance at the doctor's charts, pinned like trophies on the wall. In the 1850s, men like William Acton, a British physician, published works like The Functions and Disorders of the Reproductive Organs, arguing that women's mental health is tied to their bodies, their emotions a byproduct of biology. You can almost hear the rustle of his pages, the confidence in his claims. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Acton believed excessive piano playing could overstimulate women's nerves, triggering hysteria. Picture Charlotte, forbidden her books, now scolded for a sonata, her fingers still to save her. You chuckle softly. Modern warnings about screen time feel like they're distant kin, don't they? The hall feels smaller now, the air heavy with the weight of unchallenged truths. You think of the women we've met, Jane Eyre's fierce spirit, Anne's defiant pen, Charlotte lying still in her floral room. Their lives are absent here, reduced to symptoms on a chart. You want to interrupt, to ask if they've ever spoken to a woman like Anne, but the doctor's voice drones on, unmoved. You glance at a young student, his face earnest, and wonder if he'll carry these ideas forward or dare to question them. The chart's lines blur in the lamplight, and you feel a pang. Knowledge can be a cage too, can it? You step outside. The night air's sharp and clean after the hall's stuffy warmth. The street is quiet, save for the distant clatter of a carriage. You pause by a stone fountain, its water murmuring like a lullaby. And think of Acton's words, his certainty drying like ink. This is no small thing. These lectures shape diagnoses, cures, lives. Scholars still debate whether this medical dominance was a product of ignorance or a deliberate gatekeeping of power. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the fog curls around you. The stars are hidden, but you sense their light, steady and patient. You walk on, passing a small apothecary, its window glowing with bottles of tonics, laudanum, valerian, promises of calm. These are the tools of the men in that hall, you realize, softening women into compliance. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady hands untouched by their debates. Her struggles don't reach these halls, she's too busy surviving. You think of your own time, of medical panels and online health forums, and smile wryly. Different voices, same quest for truth. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the apothecary's brick wall. The air smells of rain, and the faint chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. You pass a park. Its willows swaying gently, its branches tying you to the nights we've sat beneath them. The scent of wet grass mixes with faint smoke, grounding you. You think of the burnt feathers, the magnets, the custard trays, and smile. History loves its strange fixes, doesn't it? The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning towards sparks of change. Where these debates begin to crack. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the park's edge, where the fog softens the gas lamp's glow. The air smells of earth and faint lavender. A nod to the perfumes we've met. You think of the lecture hall, its charts mapping women's minds without their consent. This tale, our tale, flows on unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. There's more to see, voices rising, truths shifting, futures dawning. For now, let the park's hush cradle you. History's debates are patient, and we'll follow them soon. Part 12. The park's willow whispers as you stand, its branches swaying in the fog that cloaks Victorian London. The air carries the faint scent of wet grass and distant coal smoke, grounding you in the 1840s, where hysteria binds women to lectures, cures, and silences. Yet you feel a spark, a quiet shift. Your boots tap softly on the cobblestones as you leave the park behind, drawn toward a bustling square where voices rise, not the stern tones of lecture halls, but something bolder, brighter. The air smells of roasted chestnuts and ink, and you sense a change brewing, a crack in the fortress of medical control. You're here to find the women and reformers who question hysteria's grip, planting seeds for a new understanding. The night is calm, the fog a soft curtain, but you feel a gentle pulse, as if the city itself anticipates dawn. You slip into a modest meeting hall. Its air warm with the scent of tea and fresh paper. A small group gathers, women mostly, but a few men, their faces lit by candlelight. A woman, perhaps 40, stands at the front, her voice steady as she reads from a pamphlet. Her name might be Mary, but she carries the fire of Anne's pen and Jane Eyre's spirit. She's challenging the idea of hysteria, arguing that women's distress is not a disease but a response to a world that stifles them. You lean closer, catching the rustle of her pages, the conviction in her words. These are early feminists and reformers, you realize, gathering in parlors and halls to demand better, not just for votes, but for minds. You want to applaud Mary, to tell her she's shifting history. But the candle's flicker holds you silent. This is a pivotal moment, you see, fragile but fierce. In the late 1840s, movements for women's rights are stirring. With events like the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 in America sending ripples across the Atlantic. Here in London, women like Mary are questioning medical labels, linking them to social chains. You feel the weight of their courage, delicate as the teacup on the table. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Some reformers use phrenology, the science of skull shapes, to argue women's minds are as capable as men's. Picture Mary tracing a colleague's head, half laughing as she debunks hysteria with bumps and ridges. You chuckle softly. Modern personality quizzes feel like they're distant cousins, don't they? The hall feels warmer now, the air thick with shared hope. You glance at the others, a young teacher. Her hands ink-stained, a doctor, his brow furrowed but listening. They're not all labeled hysterical, but they know the threat: Charlotte's bed, Eliza's asylum, Margaret's machine. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady hands untouched by these meetings. Her fight is in her daily grind, you realize, no less vital than Mary's words. You want to stay, to hear more, but the story pulls you onward, the candlelight fading as you step back into the night. The square is quieter now, the chestnut vendor gone, the air cooler against your skin. You pause by a fountain, its water tinkling like a lullaby, and think of Mary's pamphlet, its ink still wet. This is no small thing. These voices are challenging hysteria's roots, sowing doubts that will grow into modern psychology. Scholars still debate whether these early feminists reshaped medicine or merely exposed its flaws. Whether their words reached doctors or lingered in margins. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the fog curls around you. The stars are hidden, but you sense their light, steady and patient. You walk on, passing a small bookstall, its shelves heavy with pamphlets and novels. Some, you know, are written by women like Mary, their ideas slipping past society's gates. You think of your own time, of viral threads and TED Talks, and smile wryly. Different platforms, same fight for truth. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the stall's rough wood. The air smells of rain, and the distant chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning toward the body itself, where symptoms blur with stories. You pass a garden, its roses drooping under the fog's weight, their scent faint but sweet. You think of the burnt feathers, the magnets, the custard trays, and smile. History loves its odd remedies, doesn't it? The roses sway, their petals falling like soft whispers, tying you to the nights we've sat beneath willows. You feel the weight of this world, its chains and its sparks, resting lightly on your chest. The fog thickens, softening the gas lamp's glow, and you sense a new layer of the tale unfolding. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the garden's edge, where the fog cradles the light. The air smells of roses and faint earth, a nod to the nights we've wandered. You think of Mary, her steady voice, and the countless women whose doubts are growing louder. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we left long ago. There's more to see, bodies misread, legacies lingering, truths dawning. For now, let the garden's hush cradle you. History's sparks are patient, and we'll follow them soon. Part 13. The garden's hush lingers as you rise. The fog weaving through Victorian London streets, carrying the faint scent of roses and damp earth. It's still the 1840s, and hysteria binds women to labels, cures, and quiet rebellions. But you feel a deepening, a turn inward. Your boots tap softly on the cobblestones as you leave the garden behind, drawn toward a quieter lane where a physician's house glows faintly. Its windows curtained but warm. The air smells of antiseptic and wax, and you sense a new layer unfolding, not just minds, but bodies, misread as evidence of madness. You're here to explore how women's physical symptoms are twisted into mental flaws, blurring the line between flesh and feeling. The night is calm, the fog a soft cradle, but you feel a quiet ache. As if the stones themselves mourn the misunderstanding. You slip into the physician's house, the door creaking softly, and find yourself in a small consulting room. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of carbolic acid and old books. A woman, perhaps 30, sits on a wooden chair, her hands clasped tightly, her face pale. Her name might be Lydia. But she's another echo of Charlotte, Eliza, or Mary. She's describing her symptoms to the doctor: headaches, fatigue, a racing heart. You lean closer, catching the scratch of his pen as he notes hysteria in his ledger, his brow furrowed with certainty. You want to interrupt, to ask if he's considered her sleepless nights or her corset's crush. But the room's silence holds you still. Lydia's body, you realize, is being read like a book, one the doctor thinks he already knows. This is the era's blind spot, you see. And you feel it as you watch the doctor adjust his spectacles. In the 1840s, physical symptoms like Lydia's are often seen as proof of mental weakness, especially in women. Headaches, fainting, or trembling are not illnesses but signs of a hysterical nature rooted in their biology. You can almost hear the lectures we overheard, their charts linking wounds to nerves. In 1859, Pierre Briquet's treatise on hysteria will catalogue these symptoms, arguing they stem from women's delicate constitutions. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Some doctors believe spicy foods, like curry or pepper, can inflame a woman's nerves, triggering fits. Picture Lydia scolded for a bite of chutney, her headache blamed on a daring lunch. You chuckle softly, modern diet fads warning against inflammatory foods feel like their kin, don't they? The room feels smaller now, the air thick with the weight of misreading. You glance at Lydia's face, her eyes flickering with frustration she can't voice. Her symptoms are real, perhaps from overwork, poor diet, or the stress of a world that demands her silence. But the doctor sees only hysteria. You think of Margaret's vibrating chair, Charlotte's rest cure, and feel a pang. The body, you realize, is a battleground, its signals twisted to fit a narrative. You want to whisper to Lydia, "Your heart's just tired." But the story pulls you onward. The candlelight fading as you step back into the night. The lane is quiet, save for the distant clop of hooves, and you pause by a gas lamp, its glow softened by the fog. This is no small thing. The misinterpretation of women's bodies is cementing hysteria's hold, shaping lives with every scribbled diagnosis. Scholars still debate whether these doctors ignored physical causes out of ignorance or bias, whether they saw women as patients or puzzles. You let the question linger unanswered. As the fog curls around you, the stars are hidden, but you sense their light, steady and patient. You walk on, passing a small apothecary, its window aglow with bottles of tonics, promises of calm for bodies deemed unruly. You think of the flower girl from the square, her rough hands untouched by such rooms. Her aches don't earn a ledger's ink, she's too busy surviving. You think of your own time, of wellness trends blaming symptoms on stress or hormones, and smile wryly. Different tools, same search for answers. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the apothecary's brick wall. The air smells of rain, and the faint chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. You pass a park, its willows swaying gently, its branches tying you to the nights we've sat beneath them. The scent of wet grass mixes with faint smoke, grounding you. You think of the burnt feathers, the magnets, the spicy foods, and smile. History loves its odd culprits, doesn't it? The night is deep, the city asleep. And you sense the story turning toward the legacy of these errors, the ripples they leave. Before we rest, let's sit on a bench by the park's edge, where the fog softens the gas lamp's glow. The air smells of earth and faint antiseptic, a nod to the rooms we've left. You think of Lydia, her racing heart, and the countless women whose bodies were misread. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. There's more to see, legacies lingering, truths dawning, voices rising. For now, let the park's hush cradle you. History's aches are patient, and we'll trace them soon. Part 14. The park's willow fades into the fog as you rise, its gentle rustle blending with the quiet hum of Victorian London. The air carries the scent of wet grass and faint antiseptic, tying you to the physician's room we left behind. It's still the 1840s, but you feel the story stretching forward, its threads weaving into the future. Hysteria has bound women to myths, cures, and misread bodies, yet you sense a reckoning nearing. Your boots tap softly on the cobblestones as you leave the park, drawn toward a broader street where gas lamps glow brighter, their light cutting through the haze. The air smells of ink and distant rain, and you're here to trace the legacy of these misdiagnoses. How they ripple into modern minds. The night is calm, the fog a soft cradle, but you feel a quiet pulse, as if history itself is whispering its lessons. You step into a small library, its door ajar. The air warm with the scent of old paper and polished wood. Shelves tower around you, heavy with medical journals and essays, their pages charting the slow shift from hysteria to psychology. You pause by a table, your fingers brushing a volume from the 1880s, its title faded but bold, Studies on Hysteria by Joseph Breuer and Sigmund Freud. You open it, the pages crisp under your touch, and read of Anna, a woman whose symptoms, paralysis, visions, echo Lydia's racing heart or Charlotte's fatigue. This is the bridge, you realize, where hysteria begins to fray, giving way to talk therapy and the idea that minds, not just bodies, hold answers. You want to whisper to the pages. You're getting closer, but the library's silence holds you still. This is no small thing, you see. The eras of the 1840s, wombs, magnets, rest cures, are casting long shadows, but they're also sparking change. By the late 19th century, physicians like Freud are questioning hysteria's roots, linking it to trauma rather than biology. You can almost hear the rustle of their notes, the tentative steps toward modern psychiatry. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head. Early psychologists sometimes used hypnosis, believing it could unlock hysterical symptoms. Picture Lydia, her eyes fluttering under a doctor's watch, her memories coaxed like a reluctant guest. You chuckle softly. Modern meditation apps with their guided journeys feel like their distant kin, don't they? The library feels smaller now, the air thick with the weight of evolving ideas. You think of the women we've met, Mary's defiant pamphlet, Jane Eyre's fierce spirit, Lydia's misread heart. Their pain is finding new names, neurosis, anxiety, yet the legacy of control lingers. You glance at a later journal, its pages discussing shell shock in men, and note the irony. Men's distress earns sympathy, while women's was hysteria. You want to scribble in the margins, to demand fairness, but the story pulls you onward. The candlelight fading as you step back into the night. The street is quieter now, the fog thinning to reveal a sliver of starry sky. You pause by a stone bench, its surface cool under your fingers, and think of Freud's couch, a far cry from Charlotte's stifling bed. This is a turning point. The 19th century's mistakes are shaping psychiatry, for better and worse, teaching it to listen but also to label. Scholars still debate whether these early steps freed women from hysteria's cage or merely built new ones with fancier names. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the stars twinkle above. The air smells of rain, and the distant chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and sure. You walk on, passing a small bookshop, its window aglow with texts on nerves and minds. Some, you know, are written by women, their voices rising as psychology grows. You think of your own time, of therapy apps and mental health hashtags, and smile wryly. Different tools, same quest for understanding. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the bookshop's glass. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady hands untouched by these journals. Her struggles don't need new names, they need hearing. The night is deep, the city asleep, and you sense the story turning, toward a final awakening, where voices demand more. You pass a garden, its roses swaying gently, their scent faint but sweet. You think of the burnt feathers, the spicy foods, the hypnosis. And smile. History loves its odd bridges, doesn't it? The roses tie you to the nights we've sat beneath willows, their petals falling like soft whispers. You feel the weight of this world, its errors and its lessons, resting lightly on your chest. The fog lifts slightly, revealing the city's spires, and you sense a dawn approaching, not just of time but of thought. Before we rest, let's sit on the bench by the garden's edge, where the stars peek through the fog. The air smells of roses and faint ink, a nod to the pages we've turned. You think of Anna, her voice breaking through, and the countless women whose pain shaped a new science. This tale, our tale, flows on, unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. There's one more step. A quiet awakening, a call for kindness. For now, let the garden's hush cradle you. History's lessons are patient, and we'll hear them soon. Part 15. The garden's roses sway softly as you rise, their faint sweetness blending with the lifting fog of Victorian London. The air carries the scent of damp earth and distant ink, tying you to the library's pages and the nights we've wandered. It's the late 1840s, but you feel the dawn of a new century approaching, not just in time but in thought. Hysteria has bound women to myths, cures, and misread bodies. Yet you sense a quiet awakening, a call for kinder truths. Your boots tap gently on the cobblestones as you leave the garden behind, drawn toward a bustling square where gas lamps flicker. Their light brighter now, as if heralding change. The air smells of roasted chestnuts and hope, and you're here to stand at the edge of the 20th century, where voices demand a fairer approach to women's minds. The night is calm, the fog thinning, and you feel a gentle lift, as if history itself is exhaling. You slip into a meeting hall, its door ajar. The air warm with the scent of tea and fresh paper. A diverse group gathers, women, men, reformers, even a few doctors, their faces lit by candlelight. A young woman, perhaps 25, speaks at the front, her voice clear and steady. Her name might be Ellen, but she carries the fire of Mary's pamphlets and Anne's defiance. She's calling for a new understanding of mental health. One that listens to women, not labels them. You lean closer, catching the rustle of her notes, the conviction in her words. This is the dawn, you realize, where hysteria begins to fade, replaced by ideas of empathy and inquiry. You want to cheer for Ellen, to tell her she's rewriting the ledger, but the candle's flicker holds you silent. This is the final turn, you see. Fragile but fierce. In the late 19th century, pioneers like Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, Britain's first female doctor, are challenging medicine's male fortress, demanding rigor over bias. By the 1890s, her work and others will push psychology toward listening, not controlling. You can almost hear the rustle of their degrees, the quiet triumph of their presence. But there's a quirky detail that makes you tilt your head, some reformers advocate bicycle therapy, claiming cycling strengthens women's nerves. Picture Ellen pedaling through London, her skirts flapping, defying hysteria with every turn of the wheel. You chuckle softly, mod and spin classes owe her a nod, don't they? The hall feels warmer now, the air thick with shared vision. You glance at the others, a teacher, her eyes bright, a doctor, his pen still but listening. They're not all hysterical, by label, but they know the weight, Lydia's misread heart, Charlotte's stifling bed, Eliza's asylum walls. You think of the flower girl from the square, her steady hands untouched by these halls. Her strength, you realize, is part of this awakening. Her survival a silent demand for fairness. You want to stay, to hear more, but the story pulls you onward, the candlelight fading as you step back into the night. The square is alive now. The fog nearly gone, revealing a starry sky. You pause by a fountain, its water sparkling like a promise, and think of Ellen's voice, its clarity cutting through decades of error. This is no small thing. The 19th century's mistakes are giving way to a psychology that seeks to understand, not cage. Scholars still debate whether this shift was driven by science or by women's relentless push for justice. You let the question linger, unanswered, as the stars shine above. The air smells of rain and possibility, and the distant chime of a clock feels like a heartbeat, slow and hopeful. You walk on, passing a bookshop, its window aglow with texts on minds and healing. Some, you know, are written by women like Ellen, their voices no longer hidden by pseudonyms. You think of your own time, of therapy podcasts and open conversations, and smile wryly. Different tools. Same quest for kindness. The thought makes you pause, your fingers brushing the bookshop's glass. The night is deep, but the city feels awake, as if sensing the century's turn. You think of the burnt feathers, the bicycle wheels, the custard trays, and smile. History loves its odd stepping stones, doesn't it? You pass a park, its willows swaying gently, its branches tying you to the nights we've sat beneath them. The scent of wet grass mixes with faint chestnuts, grounding you. You feel the weight of this world, its errors and its awakenings, resting lightly on your chest. The stars are bright now, their light a quiet promise, and you sense the story closing, not with an end, but with an opening, a call to keep listening. Before we part, let's sit on a bench by the park's edge, where the stars cast a silver glow. The air smells of roses and faint hope, a nod to the nights we've wandered. You think of Ellen, her steady voice, and the countless women whose pain and strength shaped a kinder path. This tale, our tale, flows on unbroken, like the Thames we wandered by long ago. History's truths are vast, and there's always more to learn. For now, let the stars' light cradle you. Sleep well, dear listener, until we wander again. The stars above the park gleam softly, their silver light spilling over the bench where you sit, the air rich with the scent of roses and the promise of dawn. Victorian London, with its fog and gas lamps, feels like a dream now. Its cobblestones and whispered stories fading gently into the night. You've wandered through the weight of hysteria. From Emily's trembling hands by the Thames to Ellen's steady voice in the meeting hall, each woman a thread in a tapestry of pain, defiance, and quiet triumph. The journey has been long, but here, at its close, the world feels still, as if history itself is pausing to breathe with you. You lean back, the bench's wormwood warm against your shoulders, and let the night's calm settle over you like a blanket. The willow's branches sway nearby, their rustle a lullaby tying you to every night we've shared, by the river, under the oak, beneath the roses. You think of the women whose stories we've traced, Clara's fainting spell, Lydia's racing heart, Mary's inked courage. Their struggles, misread for so long, have carved a path toward kinder truths. Ones that echo in your own time, in conversations and care that seek to listen. You smile softly, remembering the burnt feathers, the bicycle wheels, the odd cures we chuckled at together. History, with all its quirks, is a gentle teacher, isn't it? The air grows cooler, the stars brighter, and you feel a warmth in your chest, a quiet trust that these stories matter, that they've carried you here for a reason. The Thames, somewhere beyond the square, murmurs on, its currents weaving past and present into one. You've seen the weight of error, the spark of change, and the slow dawn of understanding. Now you can close your eyes and let the currents of time take you away, drifting on the river's song, safe in the knowledge that history's heart beats on, patient and vast. Rest now, dear listener, wrapped in the glow of stars and stories. The night is yours, soft and sure, and whenever you're ready, there are more tales waiting, just beyond the fog. Sleep well, carried by the warmth of all we've shared.